A team that has won 2 World Cups in the beginning, a team that dominated the entire 1900s, a team that has won all the ICC trophies, the team of the so-called invincible West Indies, which all the other teams feared at one point. The same team is in such a bad shape that players are focused on T20 leagues like IPL, and the national team's reputation is completely ruined. So much so that in the last few years, West Indies is not even able to qualify for the ICC tournaments. And on the other hand, players from all over the world are busy winning trophies for their teams. There was a time when players and the cricket board were forced to fight each other. So is the condition of the West Indies team. The reason for the money gained in IPL and other leagues, or is the West Indies cricket board itself responsible for all this? In the West Indies, cricket also came from British colonization like other cricket-playing nations, and soon after, the locals of the Caribbean islands adapted cricket very well, and by the 1950s, cricket had become very popular in the West Indies. Fast forward to 1975, World Cup, a young West Indies team who enters the tournament as a favorite. She didn't disappoint anyone. This tournament was played in England, and this World Cup was named by the West Indies, without any problem. West Indies didn't lose a single match in that World Cup, and they easily won that first ever World Cup. And the same thing happened in the next World Cup, i.e., the 1979 World Cup. West Indies remained unbeaten in group stage, and they again named the World Cup. As if in that era, apart from this team, all the other teams had come to participate. West Indies players made their names in everything from batting to bowling. The players of that time were like legends, like Sir Clive Lloyd and Sir Vivian Richards. At that time, defeating the West Indies cricket team was almost impossible for every team. Then comes the 1983 World Cup, and this World Cup completely shocked the West Indies team. 1983 World Cup, West Indies first match, and West Indies loses. Yes, you heard it right. The team that didn't lose a single match in the last 2 World Cups. That team loses the first match of the tournament against India. Till that point, India was considered as a weak team, because India had won only 1 match before that. That, too, against East Africa in the 1975 World Cup. This defeat shook the whole world. But the West Indies team took it as a piece of cake. And in their second match against India, Sir Vivian Richards broke India's back. Sir Viv Richards comes to bat in that match, and because of his amazing 119 runs, India loses that match by 66 runs. Group stages end, and West Indies wins their remaining group matches and makes a place in the semifinals. West Indies' semifinal match was against Pakistan, which West Indies easily wins. The man of the match for that match is Sir Viv Richards. And West Indies reaches the finals to face India. And all of us Indians remember what happened on that historic day of 25th June 1983. India defeated all odds and won their first ever World Cup, that too by defeating a mighty West Indies team. And from there, West Indies' downfall began. But a World Cup defeat wasn't enough to bring West Indies down. Despite losing the World Cup, West Indies continued their dominance. From 1984 to 1990, West Indies didn't lose a single test series, and they dominated every game with their team. With all this, West Indies team seemed invincible. That cricket team, which was once the #1 team in the world, if you want to imagine the downfall of that team, how would it be? The biggest reason for this is the players who raised the team, the retirement of those players. And this was going to happen with the West Indies team of that time. In the early 90s, it was time for the retirement of the big players of West Indies, and players were also retiring. For example, Sir Viv Richards, Gordon Greenidge, Malcolm Martian, and etc. Although many big players were still part of the West Indies team, but as before, it was very difficult to defeat every team in every match, to win matches. The biggest players of West Indies had high expectations of their performances. If those expectations were fulfilled, then it was fine. Otherwise, West Indies would be crushed under their feet. And the same thing happened in the Australia series of 1995, where West Indies lost to Australia from 3-2, and after that, West Indies could never rise in the test. Fast forward to 2000, West Indies' famous duo, and the one who made an impact in world cricket. Courtney Walsh and Curtly Ambrose had retired, and there were no big match winners left in West Indies. But there were still some very good players, where 20-25 years ago, all the players were in their prime form, there were only a few players left. And maybe this was the reason that after 1979, directly in 2004, West Indies was successful in winning their third ICC trophy in Brian Lara's captaincy. In the 2004 Champions Trophy, West Indies defeated England in the finals and won the tournament. The 2004 champions. Trophy saw the sunrise of West Indies, that this team would dominate the world like before. But then the second villain of the downfall enters the story, the West Indies Cricket Board. Just imagine, if the cricket board and its players are at odds, then what could be worse for a nation and its players? Next year, in 2005, the West Indies Player Association and West Indies Cricket Board discuss about the sponsorship and promotional rights, which gets resolved much later, because of which Brian Lara is removed from the South Africa tour. Not only Brian Lara, but many other players are stopped from playing, and because of their absence, the team's condition worsens. At that time, Shiv Chandra Paul leads the team. This issue gets resolved in October 2005, and in the upcoming Australia tour, West Indies' full-strength squad gets ready. But the series of disputes doesn't end here. As if the argument was written in the fate of the West Indies Cricket Board and its players, then in the year 2009, due to getting less money from the board and due to the issue in the contracts, the big players of West Indies refused to play in the Bangladesh Tour and Champions Trophy, because of which, once again, the West Indies suffered a huge loss. This frustration didn't stop here. In fact, this thing happens again in 2012. Ram Naresh Sarwan, who played his last international match in June 2011, he wins his case against the West Indies Cricket Board. What happened was that the West Indies Cricket Board dropped him on the basis of fitness, although they were absolutely fit and wanted to play, but the board passed some comments because of which they got a case. And in the end, the board lost that case. As a compensation, Ram Naresh Sarwan was given $161,000 by the West Indies Cricket Board. But the limit was reached when all these arguments reached the extreme level in 2014. In 2014, we again saw a dispute between the West Indies Player Association and the West Indies Cricket Board. This dispute mainly came about the contracts. The salary that the Cricket Board was giving to the players was not acceptable to the Player Association. Because of this, the West Indies Cricket Board canceled the Tour of India in the middle of the season. This was very shocking because now the West Indies Cricket Board was taking strict actions, which the players did not agree. This controversy not only damaged the players and the team. In fact, the relations between the two boards also deteriorated. After canceling the tour, the BCCI suffered a huge financial loss, which was not right. That tour was of 5 ODIs and 1 T20I, which is called off after the 4th ODI. Because of this, the players of both the teams were very disappointed. This drama had increased to such an extent that because of getting less money, the players were canceling their contracts and had sworn not to represent the team. That's why nowadays you must be seeing in IPL or other franchise leagues that almost all the star players of the West Indies are seen playing, but in the same Test or ODI team, good players are not found. And from this point, the downfall of the West Indies cricket team began. And then next year, in 2015, there is an internal strike, because of which the players make themselves unavailable for the Test team. By this point, things had deteriorated a lot, and the way back was almost impossible. From the players to the administration and selectors, the matter had increased a lot. And after that, the players made franchise cricket a priority and assumed that they forgot their national team in a way, that West Indies team in which there were more than one legends. The same team, 2017 Champions Trophy 2022 T20 World Cup and 2023 ODI World Cup were not able to qualify. All the legacy that the big players had prepared, it was completely over. From the ranking to the overall value, everything had fallen by 2023. Now the players had started focusing more on the T20 format for the franchise, because of which the team was successful in winning the 2012 and 2016 T20 World Cup. The natural talent of the West Indies players and their style of playing suits the T20 cricket a lot. The speed at which they make runs and the way they play increases their value in T20 cricket. And one thing on which everyone will agree, that almost all the players of West Indies are like an all-rounder. They all can bat and also ball as well, because of which their value increases even more. And because of these things, the West Indies players are given a high peak in the IPL. The Caribbean Premier League has also put a lot of impact on this, which is the West Indies' own T20 league. On one hand, where the players were earning money by playing franchise cricket, the West Indies Test side was still struggling. During this period, they had lost to India, Pakistan, and England in the Test series. In one-day cricket, the West Indies were getting very mixed results, that is, average, but also during this time, they had suffered a lot of defeats. Out of all three formats, West Indies was seen to be the most successful in T20 as well. By winning the T20 World Cup in 2012 and 2016, they had also become the most successful T20I team. But due to being behind in other formats, the West Indies team was not able to qualify for the ICC tournaments. And since then, the downfall of the West Indies team has been going on. The most dangerous team at one time, which other teams were afraid of. No one had thought of such a downfall of that team. Despite all this, the fans still hope that the dominating era of West Indies will come back. But due to the current situation, it is not possible to predict when that day will come. However, the T20I World Cup is going to be held in June, which is going to be hosted by the West Indies and USA. So, do you think the West Indies will be able to win the T20 World Cup again or not? Do comment and tell your opinion. Thanks for watching.